The silent settlement admiral Zephyk of the Vrak Empire stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the human settlement of Meridian Prime through the view screen. The colony sat peacefully in a valley surrounded by purple mountains, its white buildings gleaming under the alien sun. For 3 days, his fleet of 30 warships had maintained orbit around the planet, yet the humans below showed no signs of panic or preparation for battle. The Vrak had conquered 47 worlds in their expansion across this sector of space. Every species they encountered followed predictable patterns when faced with overwhelming force. They either fled in terror, fought desperately, or surrendered immediately. The humans of Meridian Prime were doing none of these things. "Status report," Zephyk commanded, his forearms crossed behind his back. His scaled skin reflected the bridge lights as he turned to face his tactical officer. "Sir, the human settlement continues normal operations," Lieutenant Kravex replied, his voice uncertain. "We detect approximately 8,000 inhabitants engaged in routine activities. Agriculture, manufacturing, research. No military mobilization, no evacuation procedures, no distress signals." Zephyk's inner eyelids flickered with confusion. Intelligence reports suggested humans were a warrior species fiercely protective of their territory and people. Yet these colonists seemed completely indifferent to the massive alien fleet hovering above their world. "Have they acknowledged our presence at all?" the Admiral asked. "Only once, sir. A brief transmission yesterday, stating they were aware of our arrival and requesting we maintain a safe distance from their orbital research stations." The audacity stunned Zephyk. These primitive beings were giving his Imperial fleet orders about where they could position their ships. Any other species would be begging for mercy by now. "Sir?" Communications Officer Thane spoke up from her station. "I'm receiving another transmission from the surface." "Put it through." The view screen flickered and displayed a human female with graying hair and calm blue eyes. She wore simple work clothes and stood in what appeared to be a laboratory filled with strange equipment. "Greetings, Admiral Zephyk. I am Dr. Sarah Chen, Director of Meridian Prime Research Station. We've been monitoring your fleet's energy signatures and noticed some concerning readings from your weapons systems. For your own safety, I recommend maintaining your current distance from our planet." Zephyk's mandibles clicked in disbelief. This human was warning him about his own weapons while her world faced annihilation. "Dr. Chen," he replied, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had crushed entire civilizations. "You seem to misunderstand your situation. The Vrak Empire has claimed this system. You have 24 hours to evacuate your settlement or face the consequences." Dr. Chen nodded thoughtfully, as if considering a minor scheduling conflict. "I appreciate the notice, Admiral. However, evacuation isn't possible at this time. We're conducting research that cannot be interrupted. Perhaps we could discuss alternative arrangements." The connection ended abruptly, leaving Zephyk staring at a blank screen. In 30 years of military service, he had never encountered such casual defiance in the face of certain death. "Sir, should we commence bombardment?" asked his weapons officer, Commander Draxus. "Not yet. Something is wrong here. Begin deep scans of the planet. I want to know what these humans are hiding." For the next several hours, Zephyk's ships conducted intensive sensor sweeps of Meridian Prime. The results only deepened the mystery. The surface settlement was exactly what it appeared to be, a modest research colony with basic defenses and no military vessels. Yet something about the planet felt wrong. "Admiral," Science Officer Velkin called out, her voice tense. "We're detecting unusual geological formations beneath the settlement. The scan data suggests an extensive underground network, but the readings are inconsistent. Some areas appear to be naturally occurring caverns, while others show signs of artificial construction." "How extensive?" "The network appears to span the entire continent, sir, possibly the entire planet, but our sensors cannot penetrate more than a few kilometers due to some form of interference." Zephyk studied the partial scans displayed on his tactical screen. The underground passages formed a complex web beneath Meridian Prime, with several massive chambers directly under the main settlement. The engineering required to create such a network would be staggering, yet the humans had built their colony as if it were a simple farming settlement. "Sir, we're detecting energy readings from the underground network," Velkin continued. "Low level, but definitely artificial. Whatever's down there is powered and operational. A chill ran through Zephic's spine as he realized the implications. The humans weren't ignoring his fleet because they were foolish or unprepared. They were ignoring him because they didn't consider him a threat. Commander Draxus, prepare a landing force, 500 Marines, full combat gear. We're going down there to see what these humans are really up to. The landing ships descended through Meridian Prime's atmosphere like falling stars, their engines leaving bright trails against the purple sky. As they approached the settlement, Zephic observed the human colonists through his ship's cameras. People continued their daily activities, tending to crops and working in laboratories. A few looked up at the approaching vessels with mild interest, as if watching an expected delivery. The landing force touched down in the settlement's central plaza, surrounded by clean white buildings and carefully maintained gardens. Zephic emerged from his command shuttle with 50 of his best warriors, their advanced weapons trained on the gathering crowd of humans. Dr. Chen approached the group with the same calm demeanor she had displayed during their communication. Behind her walked a diverse group of colonists, scientists, engineers, farmers, and children, who watched the alien visitors with curious eyes rather than fear. "Welcome to Meridian Prime, Admiral," Dr. Chen said pleasantly. "I apologize that we cannot accommodate your evacuation request, but as I mentioned, our research cannot be interrupted." "What research?" Zephic demanded, his patience wearing thin. "What are you hiding in those tunnels beneath your settlement?" Dr. Chen's expression didn't change, but several of the humans behind her exchanged meaningful glances. "We're studying this planet's unique geological properties. Meridian Prime has some fascinating characteristics that make it an ideal location for our work." "Show me." Dr. Chen nodded and began walking toward a large building at the center of the settlement. "Of course, though I should warn you, what we've discovered here might challenge some of your assumptions about human capabilities." As they walked, Zephic noticed details that hadn't been visible from orbit. The buildings were constructed from materials he didn't recognize, with surfaces that seemed to shimmer with their own internal light. The technology integrated throughout the settlement was far more advanced than intelligence reports had suggested humans possessed. Inside the central building, Dr. Chen led them to an elevator that descended much deeper than should have been possible given the building's apparent size. The journey down took nearly 10 minutes, during which Zephic's inner eyelids flickered nervously. When the elevator doors opened, Zephic stepped into a vast underground chamber that defied comprehension. The space stretched for kilometers in every direction, its ceiling lost in shadows far above. Ancient machinery hummed with quiet power along the walls, while holographic displays showed data streams in languages he had never encountered. "This is Meridian Prime's true purpose," Dr. Chen explained, her voice echoing in the enormous space. "This planet is one of humanity's oldest colonies, established over 3,000 years ago. What we discovered here changed everything we thought we knew about our own history." Zephic stared at the impossible architecture surrounding him. The construction techniques were beyond anything in the Vrak Empire's technological database. "Humans have only been spacefaring for 200 years, according to our intelligence." Dr. Chen smiled sadly. "Your intelligence is based on first contact records with our outer colonies. Humanity has been traveling between the stars far longer than most species realize. We just prefer to keep some things private." She led them deeper into the complex, past chambers filled with technology that seemed to blend science with something approaching magic. In one room, massive crystalline structures pulsed with rhythmic light. In another, streams of energy flowed through complex geometric patterns suspended in midair. "What you're seeing here is a monitoring station," Dr. Chen continued. "One of many scattered throughout human space. We use them to watch for threats that might endanger not just humanity, but all sentient life in this galaxy." They entered a circular chamber dominated by a massive holographic display showing their local, stellar region. Thousands of points of light marked star systems with complex data streams flowing between them. Zephic could see his own fleet represented as small red dots in orbit around Meridian Prime. "Your Vrak Empire's expansion has been noted with interest," Dr. Chen said, manipulating the display to show the Empire's recent conquests. 47 worlds in 30 years. Impressive but concerning. Our monitoring systems have detected patterns suggesting your expansion might disturb something that should remain undisturbed. Zephic's confusion was rapidly being replaced by a growing sense of dread. What are you talking about? What could we possibly disturb that would concern humans? Dr. Chen's expression grew serious for the first time since their meeting began. There are things sleeping in the dark spaces between stars, Admiral. Ancient things that predate most of the species in this galaxy. Humanity discovered them millennia ago, and we've been working to ensure they remain undisturbed ever since. The holographic display shifted to show a region of space where several star systems appeared dark and lifeless. As Zephic watched, one of the Vrak Empire's recent conquest routes passed dangerously close to that area. Your expansion is taking you toward the void reaches. If you continue on your current trajectory, you'll encounter something that makes your worst nightmares seem pleasant. We cannot allow that to happen. Zephic found his voice after several moments of stunned silence. You're threatening the Vrak Empire? Dr. Chen shook her head. Not threatening, Admiral, warning. Humanity doesn't conquer worlds or build empires. We guard against things that would end all empires if they ever woke up. Meridian Prime is one. Of many watchtower colonies positioned throughout the galaxy, we've been monitoring the void reaches for 3,000 years, ensuring that what sleeps there continues to sleep. The chamber suddenly filled with new sounds as hidden systems activated around them. The crystalline structures began pulsing, faster, and energy streams intensified throughout the complex. Dr. Chen checked a data display on her wrist device. I'm afraid our conversation will need to be cut short, Admiral. Our sensors are detecting movement in the void reaches. Something has stirred, possibly in response to your fleet's presence so close to the boundary. We need to implement containment protocols immediately. As if responding to her words, alarms began echoing throughout the vast underground facility. Humans emerged from hidden passages and alcoves, moving with practiced efficiency to stations throughout the chamber. Their casual demeanor had been replaced by focused determination. Zephic watched in amazement as the peaceful research colony transformed before his eyes into something resembling a military command center. Holographic displays materialized throughout the chamber, showing data streams and tactical information that made his own ship's technology seem primitive. What is happening? He demanded. Dr. Chen was already moving toward a central control platform, where several humans were coordinating responses to whatever they had detected. Something in the void reaches has awakened, possibly drawn by the electromagnetic signatures of your fleet's weapon systems. We're activating defensive measures. Now, the awakening protocol. The underground chamber erupted with activity as dozens of humans worked at control stations that materialized from the walls themselves. Dr. Chen moved to the central platform, where holographic displays showed vast regions of space surrounding Meridian Prime. Admiral Zephic and his Marines stood frozen, trying to comprehend what they were witnessing. Status report. Dr. Chen called out, her voice carrying new authority that made Zephic realize he had been seeing only a carefully constructed facade during their earlier interaction. Seismic activity detected in the void reaches, sectors 7 through 12, reported a young human man working at a station covered in pulsing lights. Whatever's moving down there is big. Mass estimates suggest we're dealing with a Class HFY 7 entity, possibly larger. Dr. Chen's expression grew grim. How long until breach? At current acceleration rates, approximately 18 hours until it reaches the edge of our containment grid. If it maintains this trajectory, it will pass through 3 inhabited systems before reaching open space. Zephic found his voice. What exactly is in those void reaches? What are you talking about? Dr. Chen turned to face him, and for the first time since their meeting began, he saw something that looked like fear in her eyes. Things that were old when your species was still learning to use fire, Admiral. We call them the sleepers. Entities of such immense size and power that their very presence can drive entire civilizations insane. Most are dormant, drifting in the cold spaces between stars. We work very hard to ensure they stay that way. She gestured toward the massive holographic display, which now showed a 3-dimensional map of local space, with areas of absolute darkness marked in ominous red. Your empire's expansion brought you dangerously close to one of their resting places. The electromagnetic emissions from your fleet's weapon systems may have been enough to disturb its slumber. Zephyk stared at the display, trying to process what he was being told. You're saying there are creatures in space large enough to threaten entire star systems? Not creatures as you understand them, Dr. Chen replied, manipulating the display to show readings from the void reaches. These entities exist partially outside normal space-time. They're older than most stars, survivors from a previous iteration of the universe. When they move, they can alter local gravity, disrupt the fundamental forces that hold matter together, even influence the minds of sentient beings across light years of space. The human technician at the monitoring station called out urgently, "Dr. Chen, the entity has changed direction. It's now moving directly toward this system." A chill of pure terror ran through Zephyk's body as he realized the implications. His invasion fleet had not only failed to conquer a human colony, but had apparently awakened something that could destroy his entire empire. "Can you stop it?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Chen was already moving toward another control station, where a team of humans were working frantically. "We can try. Meridian Prime isn't just a monitoring station, Admiral. It's also one of humanity's primary defensive installations. We've spent 3 millennia preparing for situations exactly like this." The chamber began to transform around them as hidden mechanisms emerged from walls, floor, and ceiling. Zephyk watched in amazement as the space expanded, revealing additional levels and sections that extended far beyond what should have been physically possible. The architecture itself seemed to defy conventional understanding of space and engineering. "Activating the deep array," Dr. Chen announced. Her voice echoed through communication systems that reached throughout the facility. "All stations prepare for Protocol 7 implementation. This is not a drill." Throughout the massive complex, hundreds of humans moved to positions at control stations that were emerging from surfaces that had appeared solid moments before. Children and elderly colonists were escorted to secure areas while scientists and engineers took their positions at equipment that looked more like art than technology. "What is the deep array?" Zephyk asked, following Dr. Chen as she moved between stations, coordinating the human response. "A network of quantum resonance generators positioned throughout this star system," she replied, without looking up from her work. "They can create localized distortions in spacetime, essentially building barriers that even the sleepers cannot easily cross. But the process requires enormous amounts of energy and perfect coordination between all stations." On the holographic display, Zephyk could see the approaching entity represented as a dark mass moving through space at impossible speeds. Even the computer projection seemed wrong somehow, as if the thing's presence was affecting the very systems trying to track it. "Energy output is increasing," reported another technician. "The entity is accelerating. New estimated arrival time is 14 hours. Dr. Chen nodded grimly and activated a communication system. "All deep array stations, this is Meridian Prime. Control. We have a Code 7 situation. Prepare for immediate activation sequence." The response came from multiple human colonies throughout the star system. Zephyk realized with shock that what he had thought was an isolated research station was actually the central hub of a vast network spanning multiple worlds. Station Alpha 3, ready for activation. Station Beta 7 standing by. Station Gamma 12 reporting full power. The list continued as dozens of installations throughout the system confirmed their readiness. Zephyk began to understand that his fleet had not discovered a single vulnerable human colony. They had stumbled into the middle of a defensive network that spanned an entire star system and possibly beyond. "Admiral," Dr. Chen said, turning to face him directly, "I need you to withdraw your fleet immediately and move to minimum safe distance. What we're about to attempt will generate energy discharges that could seriously damage your ships." "You want me to retreat?" Zephyk asked, his military pride warring with growing terror at what was approaching their system. "I want you to survive," Dr. Chen replied firmly. "Your empire's expansion brought this crisis upon us, but that doesn't mean we want to see your people destroyed. Move your fleet to the outer system and maintain communications. If we fail to contain this entity, you'll need to warn your people about what's coming." Zefik looked at his Marines, who were standing in stunned silence as they watched hundreds of humans coordinate a defensive operation beyond anything in Vrak military doctrine. The casual confidence these people had shown in the face of his, invasion fleet now made terrible sense. When you spent your time guarding against cosmic horrors that could devour star systems, a few dozen warships seemed like a minor inconvenience. "Very well," he said finally. "We'll withdraw to a safe distance. But I want to know what happens here." Dr. Chen nodded and returned to her work. Around them, the massive facility continued its transformation as systems that had been dormant for centuries came online. Energy flowed through crystalline conduits in the walls, while holographic displays showed data streams connecting Meridian Prime to installations throughout human space. Zefik and his Marines returned to their shuttle and lifted off from the Yao settlement, which now looked completely different from orbit. Energy patterns were visible across the landscape as the hidden infrastructure revealed itself. Other human colonies throughout the system were showing similar activity, their surfaces crackling with barely contained power. From his flagship's bridge, Zefik watched the tactical display as his fleet withdrew to the edge of the star system. The approaching entity was now visible on long-range sensors as a distortion in space itself, a patch of absolute darkness that seemed to absorb light and energy from its surroundings. "Admiral," his science officer reported with barely controlled terror, "that thing is bigger than our largest moon, and it's still accelerating." Through the communication channel, Dr. Chen's voice reached the Vrak fleet. "All stations report ready. Beginning deep array activation in 3, 2, 1, activate." What happened next challenged every assumption Zefik had ever made about the nature of reality itself. Energy erupted from installations throughout the star system, creating brilliant streams of light that connected each human colony to the others. The network formed a geometric pattern of staggering complexity, with Meridian Prime at its center. As the energy built to critical levels, space itself began to respond. The area around the approaching entity started to distort, creating barriers and obstacles that forced it to slow its approach. The creature, if it could be called that, encountered resistance unlike anything it had faced in eons of dormancy. "It's working," came Dr. Chen's voice over the communication system. "The entity is being forced away from inhabited systems, redirecting its trajectory toward empty space." But the effort was taking its toll. Even from their distant position, Zefik could see the strain on the human installations as they channeled energies that seemed to warp local spacetime. Several of the smaller colonies went dark as their systems overloaded, while others flickered like dying stars. "We're losing stations," Dr. Chen reported, her voice tight with concentration. "Alpha 3 has gone offline. Beta 7 is at critical overload." Hurrah! Entity, feeling the resistance of the deep array, began to fight back. Waves of psychic pressure emanated from its position, causing several of Zefik's crew members to collapse at their stations. Even through the fleet's advanced shielding, the alien presence was overwhelming. "All Vrak personnel, implement mental shielding protocols," Zefik ordered, though he wasn't sure such protocols would be effective against something this powerful. On Meridian Prime, Dr. Chen and her team continued their desperate work as the underground facility pushed itself beyond safe operational limits. Crystalline structures were beginning to crack under the strain, while energy conduits glowed white-hot with barely contained power. "We need more time," she called out. "The entity is adapting to our interference patterns. It's learning how to navigate around the barriers." Zefik made a decision that surprised even himself. "Dr. Chen, what can my fleet do to help?" There was a moment of silence before she responded. "Your ship's energy signatures originally drew the entity toward this system. If you can create a stronger electromagnetic beacon in the opposite direction, it might be enough to redirect its attention away from inhabited space." Without hesitation, Zefik turned to his fleet commanders. "All ships, prepare to overload. Main reactors. We're going to create the largest energy signature in Vrak military history." His officers stared at him in shock. Overloading their reactors would leave the entire fleet defenseless and stranded in space. But as Zefik watched the cosmic horror approaching their position, he realized that traditional military thinking was inadequate for this situation. the Vrak fleet began channeling every available erg of energy into their reactor cores, creating a beacon that blazed across the electromagnetic spectrum. The entity, drawn by the massive energy signature, began to alter course away from the human colonies toward the Vrak position. "It's working," Dr. Chen reported. "The entity is moving toward your position, but Admiral, you need to shut down those reactors immediately and get your fleet out of there." Zephyk was already giving the orders. His ships shut down their overloaded systems and activated emergency drives, fleeing toward empty space as the cosmic entity followed the energy trail they had created. The creature passed through their former position like a living shadow, its presence warping space-time and leaving distortions that would persist for years. As the entity moved away from inhabited systems and back toward the cold emptiness between stars, the human deep array finally succeeded in creating a containment barrier around it. The creature found itself trapped in a pocket of altered space-time, unable to reach any populated worlds. Hours later, as the crisis passed and the entity settled back into dormancy, Dr. Chen's voice reached the Vrak fleet once more. "Thank you, Admiral. Your fleet's sacrifice may have saved millions of lives across multiple species." Zephyk looked at his damaged ships and stranded fleet, then at the tactical display showing the now peaceful star system, where humans continued their eternal watch against cosmic horrors. His understanding of humanity had been completely transformed. "Dr. Chen," he said finally, "the Vrak Empire would like to discuss a formal alliance. It seems we have much to learn from each other." The response carried a warmth that had been absent from all their previous communications. "We'd be honored, Admiral. Welcome to the real war." As repair ships from Meridian Prime moved to assist the stranded Vrak fleet, Zephyk realized that his failed invasion had led to something far more valuable than conquest. Humanity had offered his people a chance to join something greater than any empire. The ancient guardians who stood watch against the darkness between stars. The siege of Meridian Prime had ended not with victory or defeat, but with the beginning of an alliance that would reshape both civilizations' understanding of their place in a universe far stranger and more dangerous than either had imagined.